We boarded Iona, P&O's newest ship and the biggest cruise ship registered in the UK, in Southampton in January 2022. We went straight to our cabin to unpack, then down to the restaurant for dinner, before settling in for the night. Next morning we set off to explore, and being on deck 15, that meant using the lifts. A lot. The heart of the ship is the atrium, which extends from decks 6 to 8. There are bars, lounges, restaurants and coffee shops on each level, all connected by a sweeping spiral staircase. On decks 6 and 7 there are shops selling everything you could wish for. Here too are the main restaurants, reception and the only gin distillery at sea. Decks 7 and 8 house the main, COVID-friendly theatre. On deck 8 you could get ice cream and fast food such as fish and chips, Asian fusion and burgers, all included in the cruise price. Sindhu's is one of the speciality venues, where you can get a special meal at an extra charge. Behind all these is the clubhouse, where there's entertainment and guest speakers give lectures. Deck 8 is also the promenade deck. At the sunset bar at the stern you can get a drink whilst watching the wake. In front of this is the children's pool. Decks 9 to 19 tower above the promenade. Here there's more seating where you can bring your fish and chips on a sunny day. The curved deck actually extends beyond the side of the ship, and there are infinity jacuzzis along the edge. Decks 9 to 15 are cabins overlooking the sunset bar, though, of course, there's no deck 13. On deck 16 there's an infinity swimming pool, and here is the Horizon Buffet, which serves food from 6:30 in the morning till 1 o'clock the following morning. As well as main meals, they also serve afternoon tea and snacks. Forward of this is a sky dome, a covered pool area. At night this becomes an entertainment area for bird-themed acrobatic shows, which can't be filmed for copyright reasons. Up another deck is the games area. At the front of this deck is the Crow's Nest Piano Bar. Up again is a small outdoor pool with seating pods, and at the stern of this deck is another infinity pool. On the top deck, deck 19, is a sports court overlooking the stern. There's also a walking track around the funnel, 7 laps to the mile. We almost made it to our first port, Madeira, but although we got the pilot on board, the wind was just too strong for such a high ship. The cruise port for Tenerife is Santa Cruz, where we arrived late in the evening. Next morning we watched the activity around the harbour, then went ashore through the deserted arrivals hall to explore the town. We started by walking uphill to the Garcia Sanabria Park in the heart of Santa Cruz. It was inaugurated in 1926. It's a large garden area filled with palm trees, succulents and lush vegetation. At the heart of the park is the monument to García Sanabria, a former mayor of Santa Cruz. On one side is the statue of motherhood. The group is surrounded by fountains. We heard the sound of frogs and went to check out the pond. More ponds, sculptures and fountains can be found hidden in the trees. At the top of the park is La Rambla de Santa Cruz. Its 2-kilometre central reservation is the longest promenade in the Canary Islands. We walked back through the park on a different path. Soon after leaving, we saw what looked like a freestanding wall with windows, till we moved further on and saw it was a wedge-shaped building. We continued down towards the sea, passing little street cafes. This gave us an idea. How about a nice cup of coffee? Then we went into the Plaza de España. Passing the Candelaria obelisk, we came to the ornamental lake. At the side of the lake is the controversial monument to the victors in the Spanish Civil War. Nearby is a sculpture representing the optimism of the human being, called I'm Doing OK. Further round are the underground ruins of San Cristobal Fort and the old city walls of Santa Cruz. The buildings round the plaza are covered with flowering plants. Across the road is the marina, filled with small craft. Returning to the plaza, we found that the fountains had been turned on in the lake. Back on the Iona, people were swimming in the infinity pools. We went back on board and watched the island slip away in the darkness. Arriving in the busy port of Las Palmas in Gran Canaria, we got straight onto a coach, which took us first to Maspalomas. There's a pleasant walk from the coach stop along the edge of the lagoon in the Maspalomas Dunes Nature Reserve, a haven for wildlife. The bed of the lagoon looks like this, though we haven't been able to find out what causes it. The walkway ends at the beach, where the sea was pretty rough. Behind the beach is a complex of shops and cafes, where we met a cow wearing full COVID protection. Being a volcanic island, the gardens were all full of cacti. At the end of the shops is a small man-made lake. Just beyond this is the 19th century lighthouse, which stands 60 metres above the short jetty. On the beach at the side of the jetty, someone had been very busy making sand sculptures. Although the sea here looked almost as rough as by the dunes, there were quite a few hardy souls surfing. After watching the sea a bit longer, we went into a cafe for an exceptionally good cup of coffee. we returned to the coach to go on to Puerto Morgan, where it was market day. After walking through the market, we came across the Covid cow's sister in another shop. The beach was a bit quiet, even though it was a warm January day, so we walked along it and over the bridge into the area known as Little Venice. Here, around the marina and a small square, is a collection of two-storey apartments and hotel rooms, surrounded by lush vegetation and covered in bougainvillea. Little lanes separate the buildings. Of course, we had to find the local cat. Arrecife is the cruise port for the island of Lanzarote, and we arrived here just as the sun was rising. The shuttle bus took us to the marina, from where we walked into town. Passing a new sculpture, we came to the lagoon of El Charco, a sheltered tidal basin used as an anchorage for small boats. At the top of the lagoon is a modern multi-screen cinema, and behind that is the old town, with the church of San Ginés dominating the market square. Originally a 1574 hermitage, this triple-nave church with a dark wooden ceiling became the parish church of Arrecife in 1798. Leaving the church, we went onto the seafront, to the Bolas Bridge, which carries the causeway to the 16th century castle of San Gabriel. The castle is now home to the Museum of the History of Arrecife. Back on the seafront, we walked along the promenade. We then went back through the old town and walked along the top of El Charco. We watched the fish and the fishermen before passing the skeleton of a young female whale which was stranded in Tenerife in 1995. The inland side of El Charco is lined with cafes and restaurants, and we walked past these as we returned to the ship. Cadiz is the cruise port for Seville. We were driven the 75 miles to the city and left the coach in a small park. We were guided through the labyrinthine streets of the old Jewish quarter, passing whitewashed buildings with wrought iron grilled windows and tiled patios, where the trees were laden with oranges. Passing the walls of the old palace, we came to the Plaza de Triunfo, with its ornate lamppost cum fountain. Off one corner of the square is the cathedral and bell tower. Inside the cathedral wall is a large courtyard, filled again with orange trees. The cathedral was originally built as a mosque when Spain was under Moorish rule. Going in through the ornate entrance, we were first seated in front of the altar. The wood-carved altarpiece is 20 metres high and 23 metres wide, and is the largest Gothic altar in the world. The carving of the 45 panels depicting the life of Jesus and Mary took nearly 80 years to complete, and are covered in 3 tons of gold. The twin organs, installed in 1903, have a total of 7,000 pipes, and are played from a single 4-manual console. The trumpets are typical of Spanish organs. The painting on the right is St. Isidore, made patron saint of the Internet by Pope John Paul II in 1997. The treasure room contains many artefacts, including the crown of the Virgin of the Kings. We passed the tomb of Christopher Columbus as we went to climb the bell tower, which is accessed from inside the cathedral. Originally built as a minaret, it uses ramps so the muezzin could ride a horse to the top. With windows at every level, we got better and better views as we climbed. From the top, there was a 360-degree view over the whole city, including the bull ring. Leaving the cathedral, we passed the carriages waiting for customers. Then we came to Plaza San Francisco, where there was a 40-metre high Christmas pyramid at the back of the town hall. Narrow shopping streets with outdoor cafes led to Plaza del Salvador and El Salvador Church. The front of the town hall faced Plaza Nueva. This beautiful square is lined with orange trees, but you do have to watch out for the trams, or even the psychedelic police car. After passing more cafes, we rejoined the coach to go to Plaza de España. Built in 1928 as the Spanish pavilion for the 1929 Ibero-American Exposition, this enormous semicircle was designed to showcase Spain's industry and technology. Tiled alcoves around the plaza represent different provinces of Spain. The 4 bridges over the moat represent the ancient kingdoms of Spain. You can hire rowing boats on the moat, and in the middle is the Vicente Trava fountain. The plaza is on the route of the carriage rides from the cathedral. We left to a flamenco demonstration. The approach to Lisbon from the sea is up the River Tagus and under the 25th of April bridge, passing the statue of Christ the Redeemer on the way. For a big ship like Iona, it looks a very tight squeeze, but in fact there's 7 metres to spare. The cruise terminal is close to the city, and a shuttle bus takes passengers right into the centre at Restoration Square. Like Rome, the city is built on 7 hills. There are 3 elevadors or funiculars that help locals and tourists climb the long, steep slopes so characteristic of Lisbon. They're built on sloping chassis to keep the passenger cabin level. The most popular is the Elevador de Gloria, which was opened in 1885 and runs to a viewpoint high above the city. There are 2 cars which run in opposite directions, crossing in the middle of the hill. Liberty Avenue is the main avenue out of Restoration Square. There are little lights hanging from the trees. Halfway up is the War Memorial. Marquis de Pombal Square and statue forms a roundabout at the top of the avenue. The statue celebrates the rebuilding of Lisbon after an earthquake in 1755. Beyond this is the Edward VII Park. As we walked back down, we were passed by an Uber driver's protest convoy. Back near Restoration Square there are little side streets with pavement cafes and another square called Pedro IV, where there's a theatre and twin fountains. Nearby we saw a walkway high above the buildings. This led from the Santa Justa Elevador, the only remaining public lift in the city, which goes from the centre to the same area as the Gloria funicular we saw earlier. This 45-metre high lift has an observation deck at the top. Behind Pedro IV Square is a tram stop, from where vintage trams ply the 6 lines in the city. This wouldn't do well in a car chase, but these, by the shuttle bus, look like fun. "50 miles from Lisbon, sitting in open countryside, is the hilltop village of Óbidos. We went into the village through fortified gates and zigzagged through the walls, where there are tiled alcoves. The gate's not really designed for modern traffic. Once through the walls, we came to a maze of quaint cobbled lanes, brightly painted houses and overflowing flower pots. The village is famous for cherry liqueur served in a chocolate cup. Halfway along the main street is the whitewashed church of Santa Maria, set in a small square. At the far end of the street is the former Santiago Church, which is now a bookshop. To the left of the bookshop, a path leads up to a pedestrian gate through the walls, giving views of the surrounding countryside. The main gate leads to the outer walls, from where we could see the imposing 12th century castle, voted one of the 7 wonders of Portugal. A flight of steps led to the top of the walls. We also got a good view over the village. Back through the walls, we carried on exploring the little back streets. We passed the back of the church and through the cafe in the square before going out of the gates to the coach to return to Lisbon and the ship. Shortly after, we left the terminal and, with a look back at the National Pantheon, where important Portuguese personalities are buried, we sailed down the Tagus. Then we passed one of the largest squares in Portugal, which houses the Supreme Court. Once clear of the bridge, the pilot left the ship and we sailed out past the monument to the explorers and the Belém Tower into the Atlantic. After 2 days at sea, we arrived in Southampton late at night, ready to disembark the following morning.